Today, we'll be getting into an overview of Run Disney to help you decide if this is something you might want to take on. Hello and welcome to the Let's Go to Disney podcast. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Lucy.
Today is Sunday, March 22nd, and you're listening to episode 132, A First-Timer's Guide to Run Disney. Before we get into today's main topic, here's what's going on in the parks right now. As of March 18th, Josh D'Amaro is now officially Walt Disney Company's newest CEO. So there's a ton of new things opening across the domestic and international parks, like in the coming years. New Disney Cruise Line ships, Disney Plus and Disney Studios and Pixar films. A lot of good things coming. These are all things that started under Bob Iger, obviously, but that are going to be finalized under his tenure as CEO, assuming he sticks around for a few years. So things are definitely looking up for Disney, and it does appear that he's taking over at a good time. If I was CEO, I wouldn't mind taking over at this time.
Yeah, agreed.
The Garden View Lounge at Disney's Grand Floridian has officially reopened. It features a refreshed interior and a brand new menu, of course, with plenty of fun like teas and drinks and beautiful and tasty snacks as well.
Disney shared a reel earlier this week announcing the name of the next Disney Cruise Line ship. It's going to be named the Disney Believe. This will be the fourth and final ship in the Wish class of ships, which includes the Wish, the Treasure, and the Destiny. Disney said that the Believe will be themed around promises and possibilities. The reel showed Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Tangled, Encanto, Zootopia, Monsters, Inc., Iron Man, Groot, Inside Out, Sorcerer Mickey, Toy Story, Nightmare Before Christmas, Moana, Frozen, and a few more. So lots of characters appeared in this commercial.
For sure.
We don't know exactly what the main theming is, the bow character or the atrium characters. We have no idea what any of those are going to be, but we do know that it is set for its inaugural sale in late 2027. The video gave us chills, and we cannot wait to hear more about this.
For sure. They pulled at the heartstrings like they did, with that other commercials they set out with like the grandfather. And then, or rather, it's the dad with his kid, and then it's just like showing through the years. Yeah. Anyways, chills.
Yeah, Disney, they did well with their commercials.
Yeah, for sure.
Disney Adventure World is officially opening to the public on Thursday, March 26th over at Disneyland Paris. This has been a long time coming. Previews have started to trickle in all over social media, and it looks absolutely stunning. We don't have any immediate plans to head to Paris, but to be honest, if we were going to do an international trip, we would probably do Tokyo first, but this also looks really, really good.
Yeah, agreed for sure. Absolutely. And for us, nothing really new this week, but what inspired this week's episode is that it was the registration for Walt Disney World's Marathon Weekend for 2027 earlier this week. And that was Tuesday morning. I had, the laptop set up, the desktop. I had my phone, tablet. Like I was ready to go. I had all the screens open. I was ready to register. And the progress bars, nothing was moving. And then I was chatting with a good friend of mine, Corey, and he was also doing the same thing. And he had a progress bar that started moving. It was like 20 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 5 minutes. And he was like, do you want me to register you? I'm like, please, if you get in, please register me. And sure enough, he got in.
Yep.
He registered both of us.
It worked out really well.
Luckily, it looks like I'll be running Dopey again next January. So I'm very thankful for Corey. Corey, I know you listen in, so thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be running. So, and then on that note, it was thinking like, we haven't really done a Run Disney episode, so it's probably a good time to do that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So with that said, today's main topic is going to be an overview of Run Disney for first timers. So whether you've signed up for your first Run Disney race or you're a Disney fan considering, dipping your toes in the Run Disney scene, or you're just curious about the experience as a whole, we'll get into all of those basics today. So first up, what exactly is Run Disney? So Run Disney was founded back in 1994 with the Walt Disney World Marathon. It was held at Walt Disney World, obviously, and there was just over 5,000 runners for that event. In subsequent years, it expanded to Disneyland and then eventually adding more race distances and events throughout the year, growing into the beast that it is today. So nowadays, there are several race events held throughout the year, and each event also has challenges, which includes taking part in multiple races in the same race weekend.
Yeah, exactly. In the 2025-2026 season, Walt Disney World had the Wine and Dine Half Marathon Weekend, and that ran October 23rd to 26th of 2025. The marathon weekend was January 7th to 11th of this year, 2026. The Princess Half Marathon Weekend, which just happened, was February 26th to March 2nd. And the Springtime Surprise Weekend, which is coming up on April 16th to 20th, 2026, that will wrap up that 2025-2026 season.
That's right.
Disneyland had the Halloween half marathon weekend, September 4th to 7th, 2025. And then the Disneyland half marathon weekend was January 29th to February 1st, 2026. And Disney also does virtual runs throughout the year. This year was the 2025 Love on the Run 14 miler, the 2025 Run Disney Virtual Race Series, and the Run Disney Virtual 12Ks of Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And this year is pretty much the same. Wine and Dine will kick off the 26-27 season. That's going to be October 22nd to 25th. The biggest difference for this season, though, and the foreseeable future is that there are no Run Disney events at Disneyland this year and in the coming year. So with all of the construction and updates that are going to be happening over there at the Esplanade and beyond over in Anaheim, so the West Coast, obviously, the Run Disney events are just going to be suspended for the time being with no return in sight. So this is definitely a bummer for West Coast fans, obviously. So for, Disneyland locals or people who do primarily the Run Disney events over there, or for people who take part in the challenges like the Coast to Coast challenge, right? Which is like running a distance over, I believe it's 10 miles or 10K. I forget. But anyway, on both coasts, right? In that same kind of event year.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the time being, that's just the reality. It's not going to be happening.
So to be clear, the half marathon events include the half, but it also includes a 5 and a 10K. And the only marathon is held at Walt Disney World in January. The Springtime Surprise has a max distance of 10 miles, so 16K, and the 5 and 10Ks as well. Each of the events will also have challenges as well as completing multiple races. For marathon weekend, there's the Goofy Challenge for the half and full marathon, and the Dopey is for all 4 races. Wine and Dine has the 2-course challenge, which is the 10K and the half marathon. The Springtime Surprise Challenge is 5K, 10K, and the 10 mile. And the Princess Half Marathon Challenge is named the Fairy Tale Challenge, which is the 10K and the half marathon.
Yeah, that's right. Each event will also have theming, right? So that's going to reflect the content and the media kind of surrounding the event. So typically speaking, the theming will vary year to year apart from marathon weekend. So Wine and Dine for 2026, the 5K is themed to Aristocats. The 10K is themed to the Three Caballeros. The half is themed to Mary Poppins. And the challenge is themed to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. You'll see this on like medals, shirts, and the social media content as well, obviously. And also the race decorations kind of like across property. And of course, the character meet and greets like during the races and also at the like starting corrals as well, which we'll get more into. And the Princess Half Marathon was Merida for the 5K, Moana for the 10, Rapunzel for the half, and Belle, like from Belle and the Beast, for the challenge. The Springtime Surprise will be Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, Winnie the Pooh, Inside Out, and Aladdin. And these will change, like I said, year over year. For Marathon Weekend, though, it's been a bit different in past years, but in recent years, it's actually been pretty steady with the 5K being Pluto, the 10K being Chip and Dale, Donald and Daisy for the half, and Mickey and Minnie, obviously, for the full. And of course, just makes sense, right? Goofy for the Goofy Challenge and Dopey for the Dopey Challenge.
And with that, let's get into what a race weekend typically looks like. So race weekends officially kick off with the Race Expo. This isn't unlike any other expo before any race event, pretty much anywhere, but it's even bigger at Disney, obviously. So the Race Expo will open the day before the first race, and this is currently held at the Wide World of Sports over in Walt Disney World. If you are staying at a Disney resort, there will be buses that can take you from your resort to Wide World of Sports for the expo, so you don't have to worry about that. This is where you're going to be able to pick up your race bib, shirts, and gear bag. The gear bag is a clear bag that you can use to check some items for after your race. So like flip-flops, fresh pair of socks, fresh t-shirt, things like that. This is also where you're going to be able to shop the race weekend merch, which is very popular.
Yes, absolutely. And Disney has actually moved to like more recently to a virtual queue system for the merchandise. So it typically like the virtual queue opens at 8:30 a.m. and you can join the queue assuming you're like around Walt Disney World property. And then you're going to be assigned a boarding group. When your group gets called, you can head into the merch location and do some shopping, essentially. So note that there are like switchbacks to get in. So it's not like you get called and you go in immediately situation. You almost certainly have to wait before you're let in. So you go into like a big holding area. There's some switchbacks and then they let in like little essentially chunks of people a little bit at a time as, people wrap up their shopping. Then more people will get to enter. In terms of what you can expect to find here, there's going to be Brooks shoes, obviously. There's going to be a separate area set up where you're going to be able to try and buy the event shoes if you want them. And then there's a separate area where you're going to find all of the other merchandise. So there's going to be t-shirts, long sleeves, jackets, hats, pins, coffee mugs, magnets, among many other things. You'll have generic Run Disney merch and then weekend specific merch, including each race distance and challenge merch as well. For the Dopey merch, they actually started something new in 2026 where for the first day of the expo, the Dopey merch is reserved for Dopey runners, which I think makes like absolute sense because otherwise a lot of this stuff actually ends up on the resale market, like on, eBay and stuff like that for like marked up prices. And it's just not fair, right? So if you're running the distance, you should get first crack at it. So
Agreed.
I think that's really nice. And just know that there's also a separate line inside the merchandise spot for Dopey specific merch. So that line does get a little bit long as well. So just something to keep in mind. There's some waiting in line on this day.
Yeah. And then outside of the regular merch, you'll also have your bib pickup. This is in a separate area and the stations are split between the challenges and the distances. It's pretty straightforward. You also have character meet and greets set up in this area as well, so you can get your photos with your bibs. And then you also have the expo area with all of the outside vendors. So you're going to find apparel, accessories, all kinds of things. This is where you picked up your bib magnets in January, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I didn't know where this was, but my friend Sean had magnets. His are Toy Story themed. And I was like, I love those. Where'd you get those? He's like, I actually got them here. So let's go find you some. And I found some Dopey ones, which I'm super happy with.
Yes.
I wore them for the Dopey challenge, obviously. And now they're going to follow me for every other race going forward.
Absolutely. All right. Now, once you've got everything you need for your race, it is time to actually run. So one thing to keep in mind for Run Disney races in particular is that they start really early. So if you're used to your typical races, a lot of them will start at 7 or 8 a.m., something like that. Run Disney races start at 4:30 or 5 a.m. This means wake-up times are around 2 a.m., if not earlier, to give you enough time to get ready, eat, digest, use the washroom, and then to get yourself to the actual race.
Yeah, exactly. At Marathon Weekend this past January, so the 5, the 10, and half all started at 5 a.m. and the full started at 4:30. This makes sense, obviously, to not, disrupt park operations for the whole day. But yeah, like Lucy said, it's early mornings for sure. If you're staying at a Disney resort, there will be transportation to and from the race events. So that's really nice, right? Yeah. There's essentially big buses. They're not Disney buses, but they're like
interesting.
Coach buses.
I would have thought they were Disney buses.
Yeah. And these start running really early between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. depending on the day and the distance. If you're not staying on property, you're going to have to contend with traffic and finding parking. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Another thing, too, that is different from kind of smaller local races is that there are starting corral times. So these are lettered with a corral starting first, obviously, and subsequent corrals starting later from there. Your corral placement will be determined mostly by proof of time. So what this means is that if you've run a qualifying event within the timeframes set by Disney for your specific race event, you can submit proof of time to Disney before the closing date to essentially be slotted in with runners of similar speed.
Yeah, exactly. This honestly makes for a smoother experience for all different tiers of runners because you do have people that are chasing fast times and personal bests, and then you have others who are just basically walking or taking it all in and stopping at all character stops. Really, there's no wrong way to do this. It's just the order to the start line. The corrals start in waves of about 5 minutes or so, and for shorter distances, you'll actually have people from the early corrals finish before all the corrals have actually left, which means there's just a lot less people, of course, which is good for foot traffic, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. And it's actually really well organized because the corrals are split with like these kind of short metal fencing. And it's, it just runs smoothly. Disney has this down to a science at this point, right? And then once you've entered your corral, you just wait for the start. And this can be quite a long wait depending on how early you've entered the corral area. Like I was joining about like 45 to 50 minutes. So yeah, a lot of people just sit down and you're just kind of waiting for the run to start.
And this is different from our local races here in Saskatchewan because Oliver has run local races in our province. And I've been able to basically be at his side until just before start time. But these Disney races are next level and I would not be able to do that.
No, definitely not. Another thing that sets Disney apart is the overall vibe at the race weekend. So like I was saying earlier, it's just electric, Case. And don't get me wrong, there's like always a level of excitement and anticipation at every race event I've been to. That's just, what I've experienced, but nothing like Run Disney. There's like a stage with a DJ and Carissa Galloway is usually there as well. So she's a relative of the late Jeff Galloway, right? And there's also character meet and greets here on either side of the stage. And then there's an other stage by the corrals. And then closer to the race start, the party is going to move over there. And they're interviewing people and there's music playing and they're just hyping people up. And it's just like, yeah, it's just a lot of fun. On the course itself, obviously there's a bunch of character stops. And like, obviously the longer the distance, the more character stops there's going to be. There's like marching bands and music and like fun mile markers. And it's just, yeah, like between that and running actually physically in the parks, like, it's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that we haven't mentioned is that the odd time you will see people wearing fun outfits at the race events, but Disney is next level. The vast majority of people wear something Disney, whether it's something subtle like colors representing a character to full-blown costumes. It is next level.
100%. I saw a guy dressed, no word of a lie, dressed up as Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, wow.
Like tentacles and everything. He had like a prosthetic, like
he probably didn't sleep that night.
on his face. And yeah, he ran a 10K in it. And like, it was like a full like
That's
pirate
impressive.
jacket. And, it was kind of hot that day too. So I'm sure he was sweating.
That's impressive
but
for sure.
Very, very impressive. And then of course, the longer the distance, you're going to have highway miles, right? Or like, that's what I like to call them, but essentially running on the roads, essentially between the parks.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you're actually running through the parks, which for me is just the highlight of any Disney race and part of the reason, if not most of the reason why you're running there. Depending on the event and the distance, the route is going to be different. The routes are announced before the race event, so you actually know where you're going to be running before you actually travel. So that's pretty nice. And to me, it doesn't matter which park you run through. It's awesome any way you slice it. But if I was pressed, I would say that running down Main Street USA is by far the best experience with, just the cast members at the entrance, clapping and cheering you on. And then the crowds lining Main Street is just, I didn't have anybody there cheering for me specifically at the last event, but it's just such a special experience because everyone's just cheering for everyone. And it's just such a fun boost. And especially like seeing the castle too, right? It's just running for me, like, running in such a significant place, right? It was just, unmatched. By far the most fun I've ever had running. It's not even close. I'm going to be chasing that, running high forever now. So I'm glad I do get to run Dopey again next year because, I'll get to run down, assuming they don't change the courses, I'll get to run down Main Street USA twice again next year.
Yes, that's true. I can't imagine they would get rid of that. I can only imagine, too, what that must feel like, especially for you, because I know how much you love Disney. I know how much you love running. It's quite a passion of yours. So the two combined is pretty special. And then, of course, there are character stops in the parks, too, and in front of the landmarks as well. So you have pictures with Spaceship Earth, Cinderella Castle, Everest, and Tower of Terror at all four parks.
For sure, exactly. And there's also, you actually get to run backstage a little bit as well, which is pretty cool. These are not areas that, most people get to see very often, if at all. And it's not really magical in a sense because it's just kind of like, park operations and just like, but there is something special about running somewhere where most guests will never see.
That's right.
Yeah.
It does not go into Disney Springs though, right?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought.
All right. Next up, let's get into registration and planning. So this bit is really important if you want to take part in a Run Disney event, any event throughout the season. So Run Disney races are popular. Like I'm talking Taylor Swift tickets popular.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, it's true.
If you don't come in with a game plan for registration, you're more than likely just not going to get in. Okay. Disney will announce the registration windows well in advance, so you'll know exactly when you have to be online and ready to go. Registration usually opens up a week in advance of general registration for select Run Disney members. So just for reference, Club Run Disney registration for the Wine and Dine opened on February 3rd and on February 10th for everyone else. Marathon Weekend opened just recently. That was on March 10th for Club Run Disney members and March 17th for everyone else. Princess Half will be on May 26th for Club Run Disney and June 2nd for everyone else. And Springtime Surprise is going to be on June 30th for Club Run Disney and July 7th for everyone else.
Yeah, that's right. And registration on average is more expensive than your average race, like most things with Disney. Of course, not every race has you run through the theme park, so it's not an experience that you'll get anywhere else. So this is obviously very unique. But it is something to keep in mind that the cost is higher. In terms of how registration works, it officially opens at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as of this recording. When you visit the Run Disney website on registration day, you'll automatically be put into a waiting room. Now, it is important to note that when registration opens at 10 a.m., Disney's system will randomly sort entries from people waiting in the virtual waiting room. Regardless of if you joined at 9 a.m. or 9:59 a.m., you have about as much a chance of securing a reservation as everybody else does. It's very random.
Random,
That's
exactly.
the thing.
Yeah.
We've seen people all over social media join super early and join super late and still have success. So it does appear to be completely random. Like we said, Disney just says that is how it is. Having said that, there is a super stressful registration process. And unfortunately, it does mean that a lot of event hopefuls won't secure a registration on registration day.
Exactly.
Like you would have, if it hadn't been for Corey, you would have been hooped.
That's exactly correct. Yeah. Now, some things that you can do to help your odds. So one is to make sure all of your Run Disney account details are up to date. So the less information you have to input or enter when it's go time, right, the better. Because if you do get in, you're not officially in until your payment has gone through and you're like actually registered. So you could like be loaded into the page. But if you know you're in there for 10 minutes and it sells out while you're in there, yeah, that also, you're not secured a spot just because you got through, essentially. You have to complete the transaction, so to speak. The next thing is to join the waiting room on multiple devices. So for example, if you have like a desktop, a tablet, and a smartphone, that increases your chances from 1 to 3, right, of getting through on one of those devices. And then beyond that, if you have any friends or family that are also running or traveling with you, they should be doing the same thing, right? Because again, that increases your chances of getting through somewhere. Last year, like I was lucky and I was able to sign up for Dopey fairly quickly, all things considered, before anything actually sold out at all. This year, I never got out of the progress bar screen. And yeah, shout out to my good friend Corey. We're running Dopey in 2027. And like I was saying, right, he was able to get us both registered, but it was close. Like Goofy had already sold out and I think the half had already sold out. And like probably 2 minutes after he messaged me, like, we're in, Dopey sold out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm forever grateful to Corey for that. Thank you, Corey. Like I said, I know you're listening. So again, I've said thank you like 17 times, but it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for him. So thank you.
Yeah, totally. It is definitely helpful to have friends there with you, like Oliver was saying. Now, there are other ways to secure a bib if you weren't able to get in on registration day. One way is Club Run Disney, but this comes with membership fees that are quite steep. And there are tiers here. Silver members get no registration benefits. Gold and Platinum get registration benefits, but it takes time to get there since you can't just join the club at any time. Openings start for Silver, and then Silver members get first crack at Gold memberships, and then these will sell out before they go on sale to the general public. It's a whole thing. It's probably not for first timers anyway, but we figure we should mention it because it is there and it does exist. Outside of that, charities will also get a certain number of bibs. You can partner with a charity that means something to you. There will be fundraising requirements that will vary depending on your charity and the event that you are participating in. But that is another way that you can get in outside of the general registration as well.
Yeah, exactly. Outside of that, it's just hard to get into a Run Disney event, right? That's the reality. As long as you understand that and you can make your peace with it, then that's just the reality. You may get lucky, you may not. You may have to settle for a distance that you didn't necessarily set out for. So for example, the Goofy Challenge, like I said, was the first to sell out this year. So if you had your heart set on that, you may have had to settle, for just the half marathon or just the full marathon, or, go all in for Dopey if you got in at all, right? This is by far the least magical part of the process because you could have like huge relief of getting in or, major heartbreak, which happens to a lot of folks.
Exactly. Now, let's say you are registered, you got lucky, and you're going to be able to run in one of the Run Disney events. You need to plan your visit. If you plan on staying at a Disney resort, which we obviously highly recommend, you'll want to book this as soon as possible. So as of this recording, 2027 bookings aren't open yet. So even if you got into the marathon weekend, you will have to wait at least a little longer before you can book your resort. But wine and dine runners should be booking if they haven't already for sure. Run Disney events draw major crowds above and beyond the guests that are already traveling. So you'll want to do that super early for sure. And you'll also want to think about park tickets. This is something you'll have to be realistic about. If you are running something like the Dopey, there is a lot of mileage in a very short amount of time. So be mindful about how much time you're actually going to spend on your feet in the parks during and in between your races, essentially.
Yep.
We're not telling you not to do it, but it's definitely worth putting some thought into this for sure.
Absolutely right. And, as an annual pass holder, it makes it almost a little too easy. And I was definitely in the parks way more than I probably should have been during marathon weekend this past January. But if you're only running one race, right, especially for a shorter distance like a 5K or a 10K, this is much less of a thing, right?
Absolutely.
Especially if you're not going for time and you're just going for atmosphere.
The experience of it.
Yeah, totally. And on actually a quick note on that, that's something that as a runner, you're definitely going to want to figure out. So are you running for time or running for fun? There's not a right or a wrong way to do it. But what I will say is that you can run fast anywhere, but running at Disney is a really special experience. If there's ever a time to slow your pace and just kind of enjoy, where you are and where you're running, in my opinion, it's here. Okay.
Yeah.
You will have people that will run for time for sure, just much less than you will at pretty much any other race event anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not a runner at all. I don't believe you should run unless you're being chased. No, I'm just kidding. But if I were to do it, I would be doing it for the experience.
Sure. And
Disney, I would be maybe running a little bit, and then I would just walk a lot of it too. And it would just be for me, just the experience of it all. So and like Oliver said, he saw all different kinds of runners, costumes. Like people just made it into an experience. It's fun.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
So now one question that a lot of first-time Run Disney guests will ask is Run Disney okay for a non-runner? The answer is yes, but with preparation, especially for long distances and challenges. This isn't a hard and fast rule and not true for everyone, but as a general principle, a 5K is beginner-friendly, a 10K is moderate, and a half and full will take serious training for the best experience. Because even if you're not fast and you have no intention to run fast, if you go from no training at all to running a marathon, that's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So one thing to be super mindful of is there is a pace requirement, which is a 16-minute mile.
That's right.
You may have heard of the Balloon Ladies, right? So long story short, the Balloon Ladies are cast members that hold a 16-minute mile pace at the very back of the last corral. This essentially just ensures that the event ends in a reasonable amount of time and that essentially the roadways around Walt Disney World can start to reopen for the day.
Yeah, they're still a business, right? They need to still open the parks.
For sure. Exactly, right? It's a really generous pace, and any other race anywhere else will also have a minimal pace, right? And after that, the course just needs to start to reopen to the public, right? A lot of times this is held on roads that are used.
Or whatever,
Right? So it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just something to keep in mind when you're training. Disney offers free training plans on their website, and thousands upon thousands of Run Disney runners have finished races following the guidance of the late Jeff Galloway. Okay, so Jeff Galloway just passed a few weeks ago, but essentially he made super accessible and popular the run walk method, where essentially, depending on your fitness level, you'll run a certain pace and then walk for a certain amount of time. And then you just do that. It's a run walk method, and you can sustain that for, half marathon and marathon distances. And the last thing I'll say with respect to distance is if you signed up for Dopey because you thought it sounded like fun and you've never run a day in your life and you don't spend much time on your feet just kind of in general, you really need to do a bit of research and take on a training plan to meet your needs and fitness level, because at the end of the day, it's 48.6 miles in 4 days, which, when you stack that on top of middle of the night wake ups, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's a blast, right? But it's also a physical and mental grind. So you just have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, absolutely. The better prepared you are, the more fun you're going to have, right? If you are super stressed about whether or not you can do this, that'll take away from your experience in general. And you are paying a lot of money to even be there. So really, you're doing yourself a disservice if you are not putting thought into your training. And like Oliver said, whether you're completely new to running or hoping to just improve your time, lots of people have found success following these plans. And the last thing we're going to say on pacing is, depending on how fast you run and what corral you're in, that'll kind of determine your race strategy. Because if you are leaving in the G corral, which is usually the last, and you're not very fast at all, you have to be very mindful about stopping for character meet and greets or photo ops to make sure you are maintaining the minimum pace. Whereas if you are in the earlier corral and you run a little bit faster, you do have that flexibility with stopping for any of these things.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Dopey last January was my first experience with Run Disney, and I ran quite a bit slower than what I'm capable of. But hindsight being 2020, I still ran way faster than I wish I would have. So especially running through the parks and, some of the other quote unquote special areas, right? The highway miles between the parks are one thing, right? Like run as fast as you want there, as there's really not a whole lot to look at. But, running through Magic Kingdom or along Seven Seas Lagoon and through Epcot and Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom, I should have slowed down just soaked it in a little bit more. So that's definitely something I'm going to prioritize next January. I have a half marathon lined up for May where I'm going to be chasing a personal best, right? That's just a local race. It makes, it's just what it is. But Run Disney for me, at least, is just more for the experience for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that definitely makes sense given where you're running for sure. And then with that, let's talk about some pros and cons. So pros, at the risk of stating the obvious, it is a unique experience. At the end of the day, millions of people travel to the Disney parks every year for their vacations. There's such iconic places in pop culture. Running all over property is a really special experience.
For sure. And like you were saying earlier, especially for someone like me, right? I'm a huge Disney fan and Disney nerd, right? I have a deep love for the parks already. And, just a broader emotional attachment to the parks.
Yes.
So running on Disney property for me is just Disney magic, right? And it's just next level in terms of experience for sure.
Absolutely. And like we were saying earlier, if you are not a runner, but you are dabbling into gearing up for a Run Disney race, the prospect of running through the parks can get great motivation for you to get going for sure. Not to mention the sense of accomplishment you're going to feel at the end and the awesome medals for your efforts too. I can attest to this. I've seen Oliver's medals. They're pretty darn cool.
100%. I love my medals. They're by far the best in my collections.
And your t-shirts were really cool too that you got.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, for each race.
They were long sleeves, but still, yeah. And then for cons, there's no doubt that registration is expensive, right? We don't just mean that the registration itself, but the trips surrounding it too, right? So unless you're local, you're going to need like accommodations, flights maybe, right? Food, park tickets, because of course you're going to be going into the parks, right?
Yes. Does that, like, in order to do this race, when you're registering, does that mean that you automatically have a park ticket?
Absolutely not. No.
See, I genuinely, I know you were an annual pass holder, so I didn't think about it, but I genuinely thought that gave you passes
no.
for the price that you're paying. Okay.
No.
Good to know.
Yeah, that's just your registration. So yeah, and just more broadly, right? Traveling for a race is always going to incur additional costs, but traveling to a major travel destination like Disney, that's just more of an expense for sure. Yeah. And early mornings too, right? So like we said, the races are between 4:30 and 5 a.m., which means wake up times in the middle of the night, right? There's just what it is. So that's something you're definitely going to have to contend with. And it's not a deal breaker for me, but the events are crowded. Okay. So if you're used to smaller local races, Run Disney is next level, right?
Yeah.
We're talking thousands upon thousands of runners. I think Disney does like a great job with the corrals and those staggered starts, but at the end of the day, it's still a lot of people, and that's just the reality. And on that same note, I'd say Disney is not ideal for PRs, right? Or personal bests. You can for sure chase a personal best, but with everything going on and just the crowds, it can be a little hard to accomplish. Not impossible. I acknowledge that. Okay. But just, I would say more of an effort in terms of your race strategy, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would honestly never recommend a family to go on a Disney World vacation if they had no plans to run Disney during that time.
Oh, for sure.
Just
Absolutely.
because, and like I'm sure some people don't even realize that when they book their trip, they're like, that's the week that works for us. Well, you're going to contend with higher
crowds
for
sure, and like road closures in the first part of the day,
just that awkwardness, and like the resorts are busier. So like, if you don't plan on doing the Run Disney events, don't book your vacation for that time.
Agreed.
if you can avoid it.
For sure. Absolutely. If you have the flexibility
yes,
to.
Exactly.
Definitely.
So long story short, is it worth it? We would definitely say absolutely, especially for Disney fans, whether it is your first race experience or you are a seasoned vet, you can absolutely have a phenomenal time at the events. It is a bucket list item for a lot of folks, and for good reason. But like Oliver said, it's probably not ideal for competitive racers that are chasing the times or budget conscious travelers as well.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. And the last thing we'll leave you with is our final thoughts. Okay, so number one, don't skip the expo. You have no choice because you have to pick up your bib, but outside of that, it's really a fun atmosphere and there's a lot to see and do. So planning on spending at least a little bit of time here. Number two is have a race morning plan, right? So what you're wearing, what to do if, the weather is cold or if it's raining, transportation,
layers,
how are you? Yeah, for sure. And then like layers that you might want to ditch, right? So picking up some clothes at Goodwill that you don't mind to leave behind.
True. Yeah.
And then of course, getting there. How are you getting there? And then just strategy for your race distance as a whole. Manage your expectations surrounding that as well, right? So if you didn't sleep because you were too excited or there's just too much going on.
Or there wasn't enough time to sleep.
Yeah. Or, it's raining cats and dogs and you're just freezing cold and your feet are wet, or just something goes wrong on the run, like you develop a nasty blister. The better prepared you are for these things that could happen, the better your experience are going to be if, that does arise, but you're prepared for it, at least mentally, right?
Yes, absolutely. And please do yourselves a favor and build in rest time after and between the races, especially if you are doing a challenge. If you spend an entire day in the park walking 20K or more steps between the half marathon and marathon day of your dopey challenge, you're going to suffer a lot more than you'll likely would have if you rested.
100%. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But having said all that, I've been running consistently for a long time and I absolutely loved Marathon Weekend. I would 100% not hesitate to do like any of the Run Disney events throughout the year. And I think a lot of people would really enjoy the experience as well, runner or not. There's a race for everyone. Okay. So whether you want to walk a 5K or complete the dopey challenge as fast as possible, there's something for everyone for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that said, thank you for joining us today to talk Run Disney. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, if you could leave us a rating and review, it would be greatly appreciated. If you choose to do so, you can leave reviews right up a podcast. And for Spotify, you can leave a rating.
You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Go.to-Disney, as well as on our Facebook page, Let's Go to Disney. We share some helpful reels here as well as some fun ones. The link tree in the show notes will take you to all of our socials.
Have a great day and we'll see you real soon.